Came a knocking on my door one night around 6 o'clock. I had no invitation, nobody to jive. I opened up the door and to my surprise, there was a bright and shining man with these piercing eyes. He said, "Sonny, you've been living your life with ease. Time to get back to work, son, get back on your feet." He left on that note without gloves or coat, even though the sky was gray. There came a knocking on my door, and I don't even know what for. After he left that night, I didn't think twice, didn't stress, didn't worry, didn't leave on a light, no. I thought it was a dream cause there was no explanation why a man would show up to give me that brief exhortation. Thinking about the words that this man had said, started searching for some meaning as they raced around my head. Then I stopped with the start at the thought of repentance, and this is where I started to learn my lesson. So many ways, started working, started earning, got a job, making minimum wage. Now I praise the Lord for the life that he gave, for the pain and all the suffering, for my soul that he saved. Now I'm walking around, talking aloud, preaching the town. I don't know if they'll listen, but I won't step down now. Whoa, they came a knocking on my door. Wake up call for my life to begin. Thought I was doing fine, turns out I was drowning. Knocking on my door. Oh, they came a knocking on my door. Knocking on my knocking on my door. Knocking on my knocking on my door.
Well, good Friday to you all, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Glad that you are here. It's Friday. That means it's, for me, it's Freeform Friday, which means I can talk about whatever I want to, because that's what we do on Friday. So glad you're here. We are going to talk about an issue that is hotly debated, controversial. I'm going to mention the name Trump, and that is going to provoke some of you, either very positively or very negatively. So here's what I'm going to ask. Let's just stay calm. No doubt there are people live here right now, and certainly people who will listen to this later, who disagree about these things, at least about Trump. You may not disagree strongly with what I'm going to say today. You might. It's okay. It's okay. As I prepped you for last week, I think it was last week, recently, and what I talk about all the time, we as Christians must learn to be more careful thinkers and better at disagreeing with others and being disagreed with, and not take everything personally and so on. I'm going to try to be rational today, not emotional, not defensive, not attacking, none of that. I'm going to try to be rational. So I'm asking you to do the same. Let's just talk through this. Okay. So it's an important one, obviously. So there's been a lot of chatter this week since Donald Trump came out with his statement on abortion. And at least in my evaluation, there have been two major schools of thoughts in terms of response. There are those who, this is their single item, and anyone who is not absolutely pro-life in the way they define it are taking Trump to task for his statements. And then there are others saying, yes, I'm pro-life, but this is the only way to win the election. He's being wise. And those seem to be the responses that I'm getting. Carrie Lake, I think, came out with a statement, was it yesterday? And her statement was very similar. And Trump said what he said about the Arizona law and so on. So those have been the major responses, but there's a lot of people talking about it. So I actually didn't decide until this morning that, that I was going to talk about this, but it hit me, and here we go. So first of all, let me tell you where I'm starting from. Okay, starting from the position that I am pro-life, meaning I believe that life begins at conception. So there's that. Number two, I wish the U.S. had an abortion law which made it illegal to have abortions. That would be my preference. That would be my desire. If I could determine that, then it would be illegal to kill that unborn person, which follows rationally, logically from the idea that life begins at conception. If that's true, and I realize there's debate about does life begin at conception, but if that is true, that as soon as that egg is fertilized, that is a human life, then if you intentionally stop that human life illegally, that's murder. Right? I think that's just follows logically. So if you believe that life begins at conception, then I would think you would want that life to be protected by the law. So that's what I think. Number three, rape and incest exceptions are inconsistent. If it's a life, it doesn't matter who doesn't matter who conceived it, right? It doesn't matter who the father is, who the sperm donor is, so to speak. It's a life, and therefore it should be protected. So I think those who argue, and I know Trump made a big deal of that he holds the position that Ronald Reagan did, and others. Well, that is simply inconsistent, it seems to me, with a view that is a life. It doesn't matter how that life began. You shouldn't be able to end that life illegally. Number four, I can't vote for a Democrat in any sense because the platform itself is pro-abortion. So I just, they're off the table completely as far as I'm concerned. I believe voting for Democrats is a guarantee to have an increase in abortion the more that they are in office at the state and federal level. My fifth starting place is all politicians speak from expedience. That may sound cynical and it may be unfair, but over my lifetime, I've seen it enough where people that I thought were really solid on so many things prove not to be at some point. And so I'm very skeptical when I hear any politician, even the folks that I respect. I'm always thinking, yeah, but I'm not going to be shocked if they change their mind, and so on. Yeah, I know, Caitlin, you've voiced your opposition to Trump outright later, so you're not going to like everything I say today. That's fine. That's why I say it. Let's be willing to disagree. Looking at your comment here, anyway. Thanks, Megan. She agrees with everything so far. Yeah, I haven't gotten to the hard part yet, the controversy so far. Actually, again, you may not disagree with any of this, but so I just want to lay my cards on the table where I'm starting from as I think about this. All right, so here are a couple of questions that I asked myself after Trump's statement. Number one, let's think a moment about the rape incest exception. Now, I've already stated, I think that is inconsistent. If you are pro-life and you believe that life begins at conception, then I just don't see how you can make exceptions. If that's your position and you agree that taking a life illegally is murder, then even if that life was conceived by rape, isn't it still murder? What is it about the rape that makes that less murder? That's an inconsistent position in my view. All right, so I asked the question. Let's go with someone who holds the exceptions. How many abortions are by women who have been raped or through incest? And I looked it up, just a quick little Google search, and in 2019, the number was 1% of abortions were the babies were conceived in rape, and 0.5% incest. So 1.5% of the abortions are rape and incest victims. In 2019, there were 630,000 abortions, roughly. What is 1% of 630,000? Well, if I'm doing my math correctly, and in this case, if my AI, I was going to say her name on my iPhone, but then she would pop up and start talking to me. If her math is correct, that works out to be 9,450 abortions. So check my math here. 630,000, 1.5%. I have the number 9450. Does that check out? Or is it 9? See, I put K instead of zeros. Somebody help me out here. 630,000. 63,006. Yeah, so just under 10,000. Would I vote for a president? Thank you, Christian Cross. It's funny how our minds, I'm getting so lazy, at least with our computers. Would I vote for someone who could reduce the number of abortions per year to under 10,000 legally? I think I would. Even with the inconsistency, even with the fact that it doesn't go far enough. I mean, if there's a candidate that says, I'm against abortion except in these two cases, and that reduces it down to less than 10,000, it seems to me like that's heading in the right direction. Second question, what authority does the president have? He's not a lawmaker. Right? He's not a lawmaker, so it's not like anybody in that office can simply say, here is now the law of the land on abortion. So got to keep that in mind based on their rhetoric. They do appoint Supreme Court justices. I have to give Trump some credit for appointing justices who overturned Roe v. Wade. In my mind, that's significant. Here's the thing. I now have the ability to be involved in my state and move toward a change in the abortion laws here in my state. Now, it is a really uphill battle here in Colorado. I mean, I think we were the first state to legalize abortion, and it's just gone liberal since then, further left. But what I didn't have prior to that Supreme Court decision, I didn't have any way to change any laws about this. I can get involved. I can influence and vote for our lawmakers here in Colorado and affect my state. I have to give Trump some credit for that. He did appoint justice or appoint them, and they were ratified, right? In my view, he has to get some credit for that. And the president, though he's not a lawmaker, he does have influence. And another reason I'm going to give Trump some credit, isn't he the first president ever to speak at the March for Life? That says something to me. It says something to me. So, all right, let me catch up on a few statements here. Caitlin says, we shouldn't trust any politician as they'll say what you want to hear to get your vote. Yeah, that's what I mean by the expedience. Yeah. And so she says, Roe v. Wade was a Republican majority. Yeah, no question. I mean, the hypocrisy is deep and goes back a long, long time. And the rhino and the neoconservatives, all that, right? Just generally, it's not about one party, both parties. Politicians. It's politicians. Jacob says, how do you respond to people who think Trump is God's next American deliverer? I'm not saying he's not Moses, but it seems like a stretch to relate there. Yeah, I think that is, now I'm going to just tell you right now, I'm not intending to make this all about Trump today, okay? We can come back and talk about Trump later. So just so you know, if the rest of you want to talk about Trump, I may push you off until another Friday because I don't want that to get hijacked here. Yeah, I don't, you know what? Let me just say that we'll come back and talk about Trump. Okay. I'll give you my full views and we can talk more about it, down the road. But to use terms deliverer and use any kind of biblical, descriptors in terms of Moses, Savior, deliverer, don't do that. Don't do that. Yes, I would encourage you not to do that. Christian says, hard to pill to swallow on the exceptions, but I tend to agree. Yeah, again, it's inconsistent and it's not ideal, but if you had somebody like that who influenced and you had Congress voting and we reduced our abortions to 10,000 or less, to me, that's a huge step forward. Yeah, Caitlin says she lives among a bunch of Trump idolaters, and I've heard people speak that way as well. Yes, Trump does support LGBT. Dale says, isn't the abortion issue actually a morality issue? Yes. Do you mean by that? So, tell me explain that a little bit more to me, what you're asking there. Okay, so Caitlin, are you saying you're going to write in Ron Paul? Again, we could talk more about that down the road, and I understand the principle behind that. I like Ron Paul a lot. I like his son too, for that matter. So here's probably where you and I are going to differ. I don't want to make this about Trump. I'll come back to that some other time. All right. So next question that I'm asking in this whole abortion discussion. Why are Americans pro-abortion? And we have to acknowledge the fact that a lot of Americans are. And I see different stats as you do on what the actual percentages are, but a lot of Americans are. If they weren't, this wouldn't be a discussion. So why is that? And again, variety of answers. Here's what I think as I reflect on this. First of all, the beliefs that so many people have. chief among them maybe, that the fetus is not a person. It's not a human. It's not a life. How many times do we hear a woman should have the right to choose what to do with her own body? Right? Now, we mock that and we condemn that and we make lots of clever memes about it. But we also have to reckon with the fact that a tremendous number of Americans, and by the way, I should have clarified this at the beginning. I'm speaking here in the U.S. Obviously, if you're in another country, as some of you are, all the political impact, all this is different, but some of these principles may still apply. A vast majority, maybe that's too strong. There's a lot of women and men in America that believe it's not a life. And our rhetoric and our clever memes will not persuade them otherwise. I'm not saying we don't. Memes can be fun for one thing. And they can have an impact, but it's kind of like apologetics for Christians. Apologetics is not for the unbeliever. Apologetics is for the believer. When those doubts and questions are raised for us as believers, we're thankful for those who have dug into the evidence to bolster our thinking, because doubts creep in and questions are raised and we think, I don't want to just blindly hold to what I say I believe. Is it true? And then someone comes along and says, yeah, it's true. Let me lay out the evidence for you. Well, I think the same thing here with the memes and some of the rhetoric. It's more for us who already hold the position. You're not going to persuade anybody with the rhetoric and the memes and that kind of thing. We have to accept the fact that they honestly are persuaded that it's not a life. And it's inconsistent, right? If a man kills a pregnant woman, he can be charged with 2 murders, and people will vote for that law and turn around and vote for abortion. Yes, it's inconsistent. No one's accusing people of being rational thinkers around here. Just realize they believe it. They believe it. So we've got to deal with at the belief level. They've been told that women are sexually oppressed. And so abortion allows a woman to have the same kind of sexual freedom as a man, the reproductive rights, right? So a man can go out and have one night stand after one night stand, get a bunch of women pregnant. He doesn't have to live with the consequences. Women bear the baby. Women are the ones who get pregnant, and now everything is ruined. Everything has changed because they have this person that they are responsible for. So in order to give them the same freedom, right? And it's all driven by sexual immorality. The same sexual freedom where they can just sleep around all they want to and not bear the consequences. Abortion allows them to do that. That matters to a lot of women. They want that, at least at some level they want it. You can argue and debate, and some of you women can speak to this better than I can in terms of what it's really like for a promiscuous woman. It seems contrary to our nature for women to want that, but that's irrelevant, right? For this point, they are told, and they certainly in their teen years and so on, they convince themselves they want to be able to have sex with whoever they want to and not have to bear the burden of raising a child. We have to reckon with that reality. That's where American women are, and all over the world. If we dismiss that, we're not going to ever persuade anybody, and we're not going to bring change. If they really want that, they really believe that, and they believe that motherhood places unfair expectations on women. Right? We've been down on motherhood in our culture for a long time, and the man gets to go off to work. The man gets to go on, even in a marriage, the man gets to go do all that, and the woman is enslaved to the awful life of raising children and so on. It's just not fair. So women should have the freedom to choose when they enter that, and it shouldn't be based on having sex. That's what people have been told. That's what women actually believe. And we have to accept that. Dale says, I think part of it is that there's been a simplistic freedom, good mentality where freedom is just doing whatever you want. Commitments like marriage, discipline, work, and abortion are downstream. Yeah, I agree. Dale says only 14% of abortions are married women. Yeah, right. A couple other thoughts on why we are pro-abortion in America. Ignorance and fear, I think. It's also true that, at least my observation, is a lot of girls, especially young women, they're kind of naive. Maybe ignorant is not quite the right word, but they're sort of naive. Again, they're encouraged. You send off an 18-year-old girl to college, and well, it starts sooner than that. But when if they're out of their parents' house, right? If they live with their parents through high school, these days they're as likely as not to be sexually active, as we say. But then you send them off to college, and they don't have the influence of any parents, and all these guys are interested, and everyone else is doing it, and just sexual freedom, right? And that's going to create pregnancies. And then they panic. They get pregnant, they panic. And the thought of whether it's shame or the responsibility or the ruining their life or whatever, they panic. If you've ever worked at a pregnancy center, you know that's true. If you've talked to people who do work at pregnancy centers, you know that's true. And it's, again, not in any way a rational decision. Story after story after story of women who later on in their lives have to rationalize and justify the decision they made in panic, and convince themselves that abortion is okay because they did it. And they didn't do it because of principles. They did it because of panic. That's the reality. And that's where we're at, it seems to me. Which leads to the question, how do we change this? Well, as far as the legal side goes, here's a question that I ask people when they get very excited about someone like Trump. And I mean excited in an opposition way, because he doesn't go far enough, because of the exceptions, for instance. And so that's fair, that's reasonable. Do you hold everyone else you vote for to the same standard? Remember, the president isn't a lawmaker. Congress here in the U.S. makes laws. If you're not voting, if this is the single issue for you as a voter, and you're going to be strongly opposed to Trump for this, and I people like Caitlin, there are plenty of other reasons why you're strongly opposed to Trump. But if this is I have some friends, I have some folks that basically kind of on the trying undecided on Trump, and then this was it. Nope, can't vote for him now. That kind of thing. Fine, and again, that's a reasonable position to take. But if you're not that way on every single person in Congress, I think you're missing the point, because the president can't actually pass laws. Congress passes laws. And if you have anyone in Congress who is not against all abortion without exception, and you vote for someone who's not against abortion without exception, then you're actually compromising where it matters most, it seems to me. So if we're going to go the legal route, then we must only vote for people at the state and local, the state and federal level, those who are 100% against abortion without exception. I don't know how many candidates that leaves at the state and federal level, but just realize we get excited about the president when he doesn't actually have the authority to pass laws. The Congress does. So we just got to be consistent. And I think it's in some ways more important at the state and federal legislature rather than the executive branch, right? Okay. Second thing I would just say here is talk is easy, rhetoric is easy, but online rhetoric doesn't really accomplish much, it seems to me. If you want to get involved in this, get out your checkbook and write a check to my friend's organization. She started Colorado for Life, and I mean, she's working hard to raise the right awarenesses, deal with legislation, candidates, everything, up and down the whole thing here in Colorado. Years ago, I jokingly said to her, Marcy, your job, your place in this world, you need to end abortion in America. Just do it. And she took the challenge. And she's working hard. She's doing great work here. And, you know, for all the people that I see online, all the Christians online, I think, are you doing anything? So if you want to get involved, write her a check. Colorado for Life. She is working strong. So there's that legal side, right? And then here's where I think, and this kind of goes back to something Dale was saying. In my opinion, we have to take a longer term view, because we didn't get here through legislation. Legislation is a result of culture. What's the phrase people like to use, that politics is downstream from culture? And that's true. So we've got to get back to these basics. Number one, I'll tell you who is going to woo me politically is someone who says they will eliminate the Department of Education. If you haven't looked at the U.S. Department of Education and the Teachers Union to see the influence they wield and the amount of money that goes there, I think you're missing one of the greatest strangleholds that the U.S. has on wickedness. I say we get rid of the department completely, and we send education back to the states. And actually, I'd be fine getting rid of public education altogether, but the department itself wields so much power and influence. And the vast majority of our kids in America are in public schools controlled by the Department of Education, and they are being told evolution is true, sexual promiscuity is great, all sexual restraint should be cast off. I mean, they're being told this again and again and again and again. It's hard to compete with that. If your kid is there 30, 40 hours a week under that kind of influence, it's hard for even good, solid Christian parents to compete with that. And they have an agenda. The Department of Education has an agenda. It's controlled by evil people. So any candidate who says to me, I will eliminate the Department of Education, they've got my attention as far as long-term changing the views of America on this. Number two, we just have to realize the public school system and colleges and universities are among the top reasons why we are where we are. I talk to Christian parents all the time and have for 25 years. Talk about expedience. Maybe that's not the way to say it. I want my kid to get a good education so they can get a good job. So I know it's not ideal to send them to the state university, but they have to get a college degree to get a job. Well, first of all, it's just not true. And, you know, we're not even talking about the debt situation here. But at what cost? If they go to school where they're away from your influence, and they are told by PhD experts that your ways of thinking, what you were brought up with, are archaic and mythological and bigoted and so on, and here's the enlightened truth, it's just really hard to compete with that. And Christian parents do this all the time. We send our kids into the fire and we think they're not going to get burned. I'm gonna not go down the soapbox here. I could make this easily soapbox on college and university. I'll save that for another time. But man, if we could eliminate colleges and universities and so on, and the state control of all that, that would go a long way. Ephesians 6, fathers, you're responsible to train up your children. That's our responsibility as fathers. And too many fathers abdicate to the state and to the church and don't put before them, so I'll say positively, Christian husbands and fathers, we have to show our children what a good marriage is. That means we work on the marriage. We have to parent intentionally with discipline, with saying no, with not letting them have exposure to social media and the internet for a long, long time. Read every email, read every text. I mean, my kids knew as long as they were in my house, you have no privacy, except, the girls in the bedroom. Close the door, I won't come in. But your phones, your computers, I will not hesitate to look at every communication you have with everybody, websites. We put up things where they couldn't erase their history and internet and all that. We didn't give them access to the internet for a long time, except for direct supervise. Anyway, that we can go down that path of parenting. But the point is, I'm the father. I am responsible to protect my children and to teach them and to train them and to raise them. And they need to see a man loving his wife and a mother who is taking care of the children. I can't abdicate that. I can't push that off on the state or the church. In other words, we need to raise our children in the truth and the fear of the Lord. Don't sin. Believe this is what is right, but also give them the model that pursuing things the world tells women to pursue this is better. Give them something attractive here, and making strong families. All this is to say, we didn't get here because of some president. We didn't get here overnight. It's culture, and it's Christians, especially men, taking the lead and being the kind of men that we're supposed to be. So we gotta go that has to happen if we're going to change culture, which will change who people put in office, which will change the laws. At least it seems to me. So it took a long time to get here, and we gotta turn the ship around, and it's not going to turn around quickly. So those are my thoughts. Let me take a look at a few more of your thoughts, and then we'll wrap it up here. Jim says, as a man, I'm guilty of getting this issue over 40 years. I deeply regret what happened. There's a word missing there. You're feeling guilty that you... Oh, getting off this issue? Is that what you meant? Yeah. There are certainly a couple generations, even before mine, that failed us. Jacob says, well, unless your executive order happy and overreach with the executive branches. Yeah, well, that's true. Got one plus vote on ending the Department of Education. A couple others as well. Christian says, public ed is nothing more than government training center. Yep, absolutely. That's absolutely true. I'm so thankful we homeschooled our children. It was a sacrifice. No doubt it was a sacrifice in some ways, but on the other hand, we're bearing the fruit of it now, and it's good. Mark says, Trump is a liar, using naive Christians and telling them what they want to hear. Well, and yeah, okay. Yep, agreed, Dean. Yep. Caitlin, are you, well, you don't have to tell me. Are you unmarried? No children? Dean says, I've heard distraught moms after their kids come home from university and throw the Bibles and faith into the wastebasket. Indeed. It's the lion's den, and they're experts and so on. All right. Well, I'm going to just leave it there. Think it through. It matters. All these things matter. And just let's get, talk is easy. Kayla says unmarried and old, like older than me. Let's realize that rhetoric doesn't accomplish anything. Action and prayer. We are not too far gone for the Lord Jesus to bring great change. And sometimes he uses someone like Nebuchadnezzar to do it. So anyway, I'll leave it there. Have a great weekend, everybody. And we'll see you back here Monday and talk more about New Covenant theology. Grace and peace to you.